Yes, a laundry sink is considered a wet bar sink and requires ground fault circuit interrupter protection according to the National Electrical Code, also known as the NEC. NEC 210.8. A9 requires ground fault circuit interrupter protection for all 125-volt, single-phase, 15 and 20 amp receptacles installed in the following locations including wet bar sinks and laundry areas. There is an exception, however. Receptacles installed in a dedicated space for clothes washers and clothes dryers are not required to be ground fault circuit interrupter protected. Therefore, to reiterate, NEC 210.8 A9 mandates ground fault circuit interrupter protection for 125-volt, single-phase, 15 and 20 amp receptacles in wet bar sinks and laundry areas. The purpose of ground fault circuit interrupter protection is to prevent electrical shock. These devices monitor the current flowing in a circuit, and if they detect an imbalance, which could indicate a ground fault, they quickly cut off the power. This rapid interruption of power can prevent serious injury or death. In the context of laundry areas and wet bars, the presence of water increases the risk of electrical shock. Therefore, the NEC requires ground fault circuit interrupter protection in these locations to enhance safety. Consider a scenario where a person is using an appliance near a laundry sink. If the appliance has a fault that causes electricity to leak to ground, the ground fault circuit interrupter will detect this leakage and trip the circuit, preventing the person from receiving a shock. Similarly, in a wet bar area, spills and splashes are common. Ground fault circuit interrupter protection can safeguard against electrical hazards arising from such incidents. It's important to note the exception regarding receptacles installed in a dedicated space for clothes washers and clothes dryers. This exception recognizes that these appliances typically have their own dedicated circuits and grounding systems, which provide a degree of protection. However, it is always advisable to consult with a qualified electrician to ensure that all electrical installations are safe and compliant with the latest edition of the NEC. Ground fault circuit interrupters are designed to protect people from electrical shock by monitoring the current flowing in a circuit. They compare the amount of current going out to an appliance with the amount of current returning. If there is a difference of as little as 5 mA, the ground fault circuit interrupter will trip, cutting off the power to the circuit in a fraction of a second. This rapid response can prevent serious injury or death. There are two main types of ground fault circuit interrupters: receptacle type and circuit breaker type. Receptacle type ground fault circuit interrupters are installed in place of standard electrical outlets. They have a test button and a reset button on the face of the receptacle. Circuit breaker type ground fault circuit interrupters are installed in the electrical panel. They provide ground fault circuit interrupter protection for the entire circuit. When selecting a ground fault circuit interrupter, it is important to choose one that is rated for the appropriate voltage and current. It is also important to choose a ground fault circuit interrupter that is listed by a recognized testing laboratory, such as Underwriters Laboratories, also known as UL. Installing a ground fault circuit interrupter is a relatively simple task, but it is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. If you are not comfortable installing a ground fault circuit interrupter yourself, you should hire a qualified electrician. Regular testing of ground fault circuit interrupters is essential to ensure that they are functioning properly. The test button on the ground fault circuit interrupter should be pressed monthly. If the ground fault circuit interrupter does not trip when the test button is pressed, it should be replaced. Ground fault circuit interrupters are an important safety device that can protect people from electrical shock. They are required by the NEC in many locations, including wet bar sinks and laundry areas. By understanding how ground fault circuit interrupters work and how to install and test them, you can help to ensure the safety of yourself and your family. In addition to the NEC requirements, local codes may also require ground fault circuit interrupter protection in certain areas. It is important to check with your local building department to determine the specific requirements in your area. Furthermore, even if ground fault circuit interrupter protection is not required by code, it is often a good idea to install it as an added safety measure. The cost of a ground fault circuit interrupter is relatively low, and the peace of mind that it provides is well worth the investment. When installing a ground fault circuit interrupter, it is important to use the proper wiring methods. The ground fault circuit interrupter must be properly grounded in order to function correctly. If the ground fault circuit interrupter is not properly grounded, it may not trip when a ground fault occurs. It is also important to protect ground fault circuit interrupters from moisture. Ground fault circuit interrupters that are exposed to moisture can corrode and fail. If a ground fault circuit interrupter is installed in a damp location, it should be protected by a weatherproof cover. Ground fault circuit interrupters are an essential safety device that can help to prevent electrical shock. By understanding the NEC requirements, local codes, and proper installation methods, you can ensure that your home is protected from electrical hazards. To summarize the points discussed regarding ground fault circuit interrupter protection for laundry and wet bar areas, consider the following. Firstly, the National Electrical Code, specifically Section 210.8 A9, mandates ground fault circuit interrupter protection for 125-volt single-phase 15 and 20 amp receptacles installed in wet bar sinks and laundry areas. Secondly, the primary reason for this requirement is to enhance electrical safety in areas where water is present, thereby reducing the risk of electrical shock. Thirdly, ground fault circuit interrupters function by monitoring the current flowing in a circuit and quickly interrupting the power supply if an imbalance is detected, which indicates a potential ground fault. Fourthly, there are two common types of ground fault circuit interrupters, which includes receptacle type, which are installed in place of standard outlets, and circuit breaker type, which are installed in the electrical panel to protect the entire circuit. Fifthly, an exception exists for receptacles that are specifically dedicated to clothes washers and dryers, as these appliances typically have their own dedicated circuits and grounding systems. Sixthly, it is important to regularly test ground fault circuit interrupters by pressing the test button, usually monthly, to ensure they are functioning correctly and to replace them if they fail to trip. Seventh, local electrical codes might have additional or more stringent requirements for ground fault circuit interrupter protection, so it is always recommended to consult with local building departments. Eighth, even if not mandated by code, installing ground fault circuit interrupter protection is a wise safety measure, especially in areas prone to moisture. Ninth, proper wiring and grounding are crucial for ground fault circuit interrupters to function effectively, and they should be protected from moisture to prevent corrosion and failure. 10th, always consult with a qualified electrician for any electrical work to ensure compliance with codes and safe installation practices. By adhering to these guidelines and understanding the importance of ground fault circuit interrupter protection, homeowners and electricians can create safer environments in laundry areas and around wet bar sinks. The NEC serves as a comprehensive set of standards for electrical installations, aiming to minimize electrical hazards and ensure public safety. Ground fault circuit interrupters are one of the key components in achieving this goal, particularly in locations where the risk of electrical shock is elevated. Regular review and updates to the NEC reflect ongoing advancements in electrical safety technology and practices, making it essential for electricians and homeowners to stay informed about the latest requirements. In addition to the specific requirement for wet bar sinks and laundry areas, the NEC also mandates ground fault circuit interrupter protection in other locations such as bathrooms, kitchens, garages, and outdoor areas. These requirements are based on the same principle, which is to protect people from electrical shock in areas where water or moisture is likely to be present. The use of extension cords in laundry areas and around wet bar sinks should be minimized, as they can increase the risk of electrical shock. If an extension cord is necessary, it should be a heavy-duty cord that is rated for the intended use, and it should be inspected regularly for damage. Overloading electrical circuits in laundry areas and around wet bar sinks can also create a fire hazard. It is important to avoid plugging too many appliances into the same circuit. If you are unsure whether a circuit is overloaded, you should consult with a qualified electrician. Electrical safety is a shared responsibility, and it is important for both homeowners and electricians to be aware of the risks and to take precautions to prevent electrical accidents. By following the NEC requirements, using ground fault circuit interrupters, and practicing safe electrical habits, we can all help to make our homes and communities safer. Remember that electrical codes and standards are subject to change, and it is crucial to stay updated with the latest revisions. Consulting with licensed electricians and local building inspectors can provide valuable insights into compliance and best practices for electrical safety. In summary, the NEC requirement for ground fault circuit interrupter protection in wet bar sinks and laundry areas underscores the importance of safeguarding against electrical hazards in environments where water is prevalent. By understanding the function of ground fault circuit interrupters, adhering to code requirements, and implementing safe electrical practices, individuals can significantly reduce the risk of electrical shock and promote overall electrical safety. Remember to consult with qualified professionals for electrical installations and inspections to ensure compliance and peace of mind.